After 1,500 years, humanity was destroyed. Horror, danger, hopelessness, this is what the world of the future looks like. His name is Feng Kai, and by chance he was able to travel to the future. He struggled with the idea that he would sacrifice everything. He and his fists rushed at the skeleton and destroyed it, like many other monsters, asking such creatures with a malicious smile, "Does it really think it can destroy it?" He was just playing with it, idiot. He will fight to save their world. Feng Kai, he is the future, he in the present tense. One day, during an exchange of experience, he was invited to the Scarlet Research Institute. Permission was obtained for the guard, and he was allowed inside. On each floor, there are passage guards, as well as the best soldiers for protection. They have a very strong security system. The man in the white coat laughed at his words. He discovered one secret: people have long become experimental subjects of biologically created creatures. Monsters are studying people. People created monsters and lost control. Secret murders. He is left completely alone, but he still believes in humanity because he loves their world. The guys at the desk were fighting among themselves. Then they suddenly stopped and looked into the distance. Thinking that they were very bored, the girl already wanted to sleep, as did Feng Kai. He was a promising guy. He replied that it was all thanks to the teacher. He shouldn't be afraid. Someone congratulated him that humanity would win, and he opened his mouth in surprise. He found himself in the middle of nowhere, where everything was shrouded in red, and wondered where he was. He decided to stop and asked with a frightened expression on his face, why were there only bones left of him? He, Feng Kai, a couple of minutes ago was an ordinary young man, a future graduate striving for a bright future and severely harmed by society. But now he has moved through time, and he is different from others. He does not have an imperial heavenly sword or immortality, a huge harem or a game assistant. He is not even human. He thought, sitting on the ground, that's it, he's already dead. Well, what is this sound? He looked back and saw a skeleton with bright red eyes, which was broken in half right before his eyes. And it still keeps creeping towards him. The skeleton should calm down. Why this stubbornness? Perhaps he will borrow someone's leg and apologize for it. Feng Kai grabbed the long bone in his hands and stopped, thinking that something like a heart was pulsating in the head of this creature. Could this be the weak point of the skeleton? He decided to try it and swung the bone right inside the skull and hit it with incredible force. At that moment, a system window appeared in front of him and said, "Welcome, Feng Kai." He must listen carefully. He looked at these words in surprise and wondered why an interface suddenly popped up in his head. Is this the same legendary system? Weak zombie, Feng Kai. Power level, lowest level. Rank prefix, weak, as strength is reduced to 30%. Race human, entry level. Blood evolution points are 1 out of 1,000. Rank prefix during transition, weak, possible to increase, 1 stage, 3%. Prefix to the name of the first transition, killing zombies, possibly obtaining a new evolution title. He looked questioningly at the system window and asked if he was a zombie. What is this title? What are the stages? What does this all mean? The system reports that he can increase the level of blood evolution by killing skeletons. He should go to the east. There are a lot of them there. His face turned pale. He looked into the distance and asked, I really need to go there, right? Ahead, there were many skeleton monsters that were approaching him. He took a step and stepped on one of these monsters, but could not pull out his leg because it could not be pulled out and was stuck in the skeleton. What a place this is! 2 skeletons approached him while he was in a defenseless position and asked them what they wanted to do with him. Suddenly, he started shouting for them not to come near him. After that, he decided that they could attack him because he didn't care. If they can fight one at a time, then why attack him alone with the whole crowd? Many skeletons attacked him, and only one hand was visible from him. Sometime later, while he was sitting in school, his name was shouted, and he was asked to answer a question while he was sleeping on his desk. He happily jumped up, touched himself, and realized that he had not moved. How great is this? He got up from his seat, and the teacher shouted at him with incredible anger, the final exams will be coming very soon. How can he afford to sleep at this hour? Will anything come of it at all? He wondered. After all, he fell asleep during Miss Wang's lesson. She kept saying that she would ask him one of the required exam questions. What year did the historical world change begin? He answered with confidence in his gaze. Historically, the world's turning point began on May 31, 195 and 23, when humanity faced an unprecedented threat. On that day, the structure of all humanity changed. Barriers of different sizes appeared everywhere throughout the world, and in them people were brutally killed by various monsters. Human weapons were powerless against them. Fortunately, the monsters could not leave these barriers. People outside this limit still live peacefully. However, the spread of the barrier throughout the world only increased. It was time for humanity to look for ways of salvation. Soon, researchers discovered an unusual matter in the air that strengthened the body and spirit of a person and called it a supernatural force. After 500 years of research and experimentation, methods of absorbing magical energy were found, and a new era in human history began. Teacher Wang calmed down a little and answered him. It was not bad, but now he must explain why he fell asleep in her class. He answered with a gloomy look. Perhaps it was due to the fact that lately he has been working tirelessly and fatigue is accumulating in him. Lately he has been rather absent-minded, so he did not hear that she addressed him. Wang turned to a guy named Mo Fei and asked him to go with him to the doctor. I will have exams soon. You need to be careful with your health. Fei jumped up and replied that he understood everything. After some time in the medical office, the doctor said, God, he was sent to the doctor. The teacher is really worried about him. He replied that the final exams were in a couple of days. She insisted on coming here, so he did it. She touched the screen of the special equipment and replied, okay, she's watching it. Fei, standing next to Kai, said with a dumbfounded look, Miss, let her check him for mental abnormalities. Today in class he fell asleep, and no matter how he shook him, it was all to no avail. The doctor looked away and said with an arrogant expression on her face, if he fell asleep in class, then everything must be serious. The examination is completed, now they will take a look. She picked up the document and in a state of shock began to scream, how is this possible? Yesterday his blood level was 2103 and today it is 2113. For such a result, people need to plow like hell for half a month, as well as provide them with nutrients, and only then can this happen. Did he secretly drink the magic elixir? Should he admit where he got that kind of money? Kai was dumbfounded and thought about the fact that he didn't have any money. Was it really because of his strange dream? Very soon there will be final exams, which will directly affect their future. Good results allow you to work with magical energy and spell research, thereby becoming an outstanding person in society. You can also join the Fighting Barrier Knights by becoming a Barrier Knight. In addition, one can also become a highly paid teacher. If the results are bad, then life is over, so they cling to every opportunity to learn and repeat what they have learned. Fei turned to Kai and said, schizophrenic, he should go to bed early today as his condition is not the best. Kai, who was sitting opposite him at the same table, answered, no, he wants to immerse himself in the material. 5 hours later, he became ill and could no longer see anything. He lay down on the bed, deciding that he should rest a little, and later he would take up his studies again. When he fell asleep, he found himself in the same dimension with the blood moon and realized that he was there again. The monster began to approach him again, and he wondered if it was this again. Will everything happen again? The same actions took place in front of him as the first time. The system tells him that it does not understand at all why he was here again. But first he must kill this idiot, and then go east and kill them one by one every day. Kai showed a puzzled expression on his face and replied that he didn't want to do it. However, he will kill once and that's it. He repeated the sharp movement of a huge bone directly into the brain of the skeleton, and the system communicated to him all the same characteristics. He scratched the back of his head and thought, after he killed this creature, the results did not change. Is a new murder after the old one meaningless? Then he will kill others too. He looked into the distance at the other monsters, looked around carefully, and realized that they were the same creatures again. There are too many of them, and he won't be able to finish them off, so he better run away. He ran in the opposite direction and saw one skeleton sitting on a stone. He sat down nearby, hiding behind one of the stones, and said, this is not bad. It's good that this skeleton is alone and not in a crowd. He took a long stick with him and began to gradually approach the monster, saying that the best way would be to quietly get up from behind, and then, but suddenly he accidentally stepped on some bone on the ground and split it into small pieces, because which caused a loud crash to be heard. He was very frightened, a cold feeling ran through him, and he thought, what a horror. Although, stop. He began waving his stick and arms and shouting at the monster to look in his direction. The monster turned around and suddenly Kai mentally wondered, was he mistaken? Are you deaf and blind? So even better. He came close to the monster, and suddenly this creature looked at him with furious eyes and began to growl, after which it abruptly jumped from the stone and attacked him. Kai opened his mouth in surprise, and a moment later, the skull of this skeleton flew to the side after his sharp swing of the stick. He sat down on the ground and spoke, yet they did not see or hear. They can only detect the target within 15 meters and launch an attack. After knowing this, he will avoid ambush and massacre. It is all thanks to his intelligence. Already the 13th monster was destroyed by his hands. He clenched his hand into a fist and said, there were more muscles on his body. He has the opportunity to become a new person here. He swung at the next monster and shouted at the creature to die, after which he decided to look at his results in the system window. The system reports all the same stats, except that his evolution points have increased to 34, and his evolution percentage has also been increased. He thought with joy. From a weakling he became ordinary. From the first stage he moved to the second. Now his weakling status is gone. That stone doesn't have zombies. He decided to rest there. On the majestic slab were hieroglyphs that meant Kinchang's refuge. He looked up at this slab and realized Kinchang. That's the name of his city. Then everything happens more and more amazingly. This is an underground shelter. He began to go down the stairs and approached some kind of apparatus, realizing that this was standing in the middle. He wondered what it was created for. He went inside and saw the instrument panel, realizing that there was a very large power button. He'll try to turn it on. He pressed the button and the screen lit up in front of him. This is the story of Kinchang. Materials about the history of the city, barrier monsters, real-time updates, materials about the situation outside, the situation about the remaining goods in the shelter, the situation with the population of the shelter, information about the use of magic and information about types of spells. The date is March 28, 3D 528. Kai was dumbfounded and mentally asked himself, 3D 528, when in 500 years have passed? Did he travel to the future in a dream? How is this possible? It turns out that using this device you can check what exactly is happening. He decided to test himself and found information about himself. The system reports Feng Kai, Research University, Galaxy, Class D, life expectancy 27 years. Cause of death. During the creation of a new technique, an accident occurred, as a result of which the aura began to flow in the opposite direction. The channels were torn. Then strong blood gushed out from all the orifices. He died after unsuccessful first aid. Date of death, June 1st, 2032. He repeated this data in his thoughts, because now it's already 2023. Will he really die in 9 years? He grabbed his head in anxiety. If this is the future, then the Star City was destroyed, right? Horrible. This simply cannot be. He began to get angry and pressed the keys very quickly and roughly, and the system told him that 5 years ago all the cities were covered with barriers, and the survivors could only pray and dig an underground shelter. Suddenly, he realized something and asked the question, if he can change the present, will the future change? He grinned and realized that he was definitely the chosen person. With information about the future, he was like a prophet, and he was the only one who could save this world. And if anything will help humanity, it will be cultivation techniques. With future cultivation techniques, he will become a genius among geniuses. The computer showed him availability. He cannot view cultivation techniques above 5 stars. There is only one cultivation technique left to search for searching for personal information, and 3 for searching for history. To increase access, he must log into a citizen or administrator account. He was infuriated by this demand, and he shouted, "What?" The world was on the verge of destruction, and they made some kind of restriction. Just don't tell him that they were afraid that the data would be stolen by barrier creatures. He was surprised by how many techniques there were. It's a pity that he only has the opportunity to choose one. This is his first time seeing these techniques, so which one should he choose? He carefully examined all the ones on offer and wondered when he saw the cultivation technique for dummies. Wasn't this the same technique he learned at school? Only his version is 68, and this one is 272. In the real world, with such a technique, he will become very strong. He decides to select this one and moves the computer mouse in the direction of this selection. A video message appeared in front of him with 3 people who showed special movements and asked him to repeat after them because they show how to perform this exercise. We need to get ready. The report began from 1 to 3 and then from 4 to 6. He repeated all the exercises and suddenly became happy when brightly glowing rays began to emerge from his body. At this moment, he realized that he felt that he was gathering Kai much faster. This exercise would change the future. He will take this exercise with him into reality. At that moment, a system window appeared in front of him, which reported several times about the danger. In a dark area of the room not far from him, bright red eyes glowed, and he saw the form of a terrifying monster that began to approach him. This frightened him greatly, and he realized that it was a barrier creature. Horrible, maybe you shouldn't do this to him. He asked the system to help him, and it said that there was no need to run and panic. The main thing was to look into the eyes of this creature. That's it, now he can die with pride. He jumped after this warning and stopped, when suddenly the monster took off and began to run sharply in his direction. Kai assumed a defensive position and realized that he was the chosen one. Therefore, the monster will end now. A fierce struggle began between them. The monster grabbed his body, and he realized how terrible it was. He takes his words back. At that moment, he woke up in his bed, hugged his body, caught his breath, and said, "He is still alive." He looked at the time on the clock and thought that it was the same time, which meant that in the real world it had stopped. He was happy and realized that he had become stronger, and it seemed like the bloodline's power had increased again. He needed to check the exercise. He made a sharp movement with his hand and climbed to the roof of the building, after which he began the report and performed these exercises. Something surprised him, and he said, "Wow." Previously, he needed 10 minutes to feel Kai, but now 1 minute was enough. This is very cool. Suddenly, the energy began to leave his body. He hugged himself and wondered with fear, why was the Kai dissipating? He can't cultivate? What is going on? At that moment, the teacher was behind him and shouted his name, after which she said with a menacing look, "There will be an exam soon, and instead of training, he is chilling here." He realized that it was Teacher Wang, who is the strongest in the school and even received an invitation from the Tiger Soul Research Center. If he enlists her support, he will receive a lot of resources, and becoming her student, all research centers will fight for him. When he realized this, he continued counting and special movements. When suddenly Wang became angry and wondered, after her words, he began to mess around even harder. If you look at it like this, then his movement and the flow of Kai are very different. She gradually began to repeat after him and realized that the spiritual energy in the air was constantly floating around her. He grinned and realized that she seemed to have already noticed the power of these exercises. Teacher Wang, it will be her job to spread this. She came closer to him and offered to go with her because they needed to talk. He smiled and replied that he didn't even know what to tell her. It was a dark, quiet night, a woman and a man together. Before he could finish speaking, she grabbed him by the collar and said with anger that he was an idiot. How did he even dare talk to his teacher like that? He tried to hold on to his jacket so as not to choke, and answered, "Teacher, soon her student will not be able to talk at all." They approached the other edge of the roof, and she asked him to tell now where he got these exercises from. He hesitated to answer as he thought that usually in such situations, heroes hide their true powers and remain in the shadows, but enjoying their school life, but he is not one of those heroes. At this point, he replied that he discovered it during training. She was stunned by his words and thought he independently discovered new cultivation exercises. Even the mighty members of the Tiger Soul don't dare try this. He did it himself. He's just like a genius. She imagined him as an incredibly majestic man, after which she touched his shoulder and said, "Feng Kai, if he doesn't mind, then she will submit a request to study these exercises." He replied that he also wanted to submit this request and wanted to submit a request to the soul of the tiger. If his exercises are better, they will notice the old ones. Can he do this? Teacher Wang replied that he was a good student. He came up behind her and said back with a wide and beaming smile, "No. This is all thanks to her instructions. One of the problems has been solved." The door to the roof slammed shut. He lay down in his bed under a warm blanket, and it was time to take a nap. He again found himself in his dream and again saw the skeleton. He said, his friend is here too. Suddenly he stopped in front of the skeleton and thought, killing again is a waste of time. He has other things to do. He grabbed the bone and thought, forward to the east. He destroyed the monsters again, breaking the bones of these creatures with a huge bone that he held in his hands. The system window reports, a zombie has been killed, a small amount of spiritual energy has been received, the title is normal, progress is 21%. After some time, progress was already 24%. He stopped and saw in the distance many more zombies approaching him, and thought that this was all an experience. Suddenly, he heard a strange loud sound behind him, which caused him to turn around and see a monster's tail coming out of the ground, breaking the ground into pieces and wrapping his body in Kai. He opened his mouth in shock and realized that he had been grabbed by a giant worm. This creature opened its mouth and approached his face. Kai looked inside it with incredible fear and suddenly began stabbing the monster with a bone and screaming for this creature to die. It's a worm. Why does this creature have such thick skin? Suddenly he was able to deliver a strong blow, which caused the monster to split into pieces, and the Kai realized that this creature was in pain. Punches to the face work. He kept beating it and screaming loudly for emphasis, as well as screaming for it to die. He sat down on the ground as the monster had let him go and looked into the distance, saying, "Well, finally, you can die from fatigue faster than kill this creature." Suddenly, he dropped the bone and a magical light formed around his body. He was dumbfounded and wondered what kind of light this was. This restored his stamina. His body is also completely healed and doesn't hurt at all. He turned to the system and asked to show the status window. The system window reports that his bloodline evolution scores have risen to 43%, second rank in progress 33%, second rank in progress 2%. He was interested in the second title. System, can he gain abilities from different monsters and improve his rank? The system answered him yes, and his name will also become very long, for example, Hard Eagle Eye and so on. He covered his face with his hands in shame, and suddenly looked at the high stone slab and realized that he had reached the shelter again. But if he is here, that means you need to go inside. The exercises of the future are incredibly effective. Maybe he will get more. His first step is to copy everything he can. He stopped in front of the entrance and looked around carefully. He grabbed his head and said, he probably came here around the same time, which means he can view cultivation techniques and personal information. Okay, he needs to look at the information about him. The system shows Feng Kai, a scientist at the Galactic Research Institute, died at the age of 28. The cause of death is not enough rights. The date of death is June 1, 2033. Historical achievements: honorary graduate of the Galactic Institute, improved exercise technique, received a medal from rank as a reward for the development of humanity. He saw this, smiled and said, "Great, the year of his death has changed." Although only for a year. Great, after 1 in 500 years of technology, exercises from the future have become even stronger. If he takes the improved version and goes back in time, and then it takes 1 in 500 years to improve again, then it seems he has found a bug. If you continue this cycle endlessly, the exercise technique will be brought to a divine level. By the way, what's going on with Teacher Van? We need to show him Wang Jinsheng's information. The system window reports Van is a historical figure, age of death is 165 years old, cause of death and historical achievements, special permission is required to view. Note, at the age of 39, her favorite Feng Kai student refined and developed version 2 of the exercise technique. After communicating with him, she realized that in addition to teaching, developing cultivation techniques could contribute to the further development of a person and resigned from her teaching position to enter the Star City Academy. After graduating from the academy, she was invited to work at the Tiger Soul Research Institute with excellent qualifications. The results of her research contributed to the development of human civilization and made an indelible contribution to the benefit of future generations. He thought, she is a historical figure, as expected from Teacher Wang, but suddenly his expression changed to a more frightened one and he wondered, but what if he found all the historical figures and directed them to change the future? If they work together, one day when he comes to the dream world, he will see a field of bones. This time he will learn the Tiger Fist cultivation technique. It's good that there are guides that you can easily understand. The system asks him to look back, because a barrier monster is approaching him, and he will die again. He was dumbfounded with surprise and realized that it was that same monster again, realizing that now he would become a corpse. But since he would die anyway, then let this idiot come up to him and taste his Tiger Fist. He addressed the monster, and after some time the Kai woke up and found himself in the school. Teacher Van informed the children that she had an important announcement. Before the start of final exams, some outstanding students and their schools will have the opportunity to visit and study at higher education institutions. And one of their classmates got this opportunity. And now she will tell you who will be the lucky one. One of the guys thought, if we are to choose people from their class, then it should be Feng Kai. Another girl thought, as usual, all the best goes to geniuses. Wang reported that their classmate Feng Kai received an award to attend and study at the academy of a famous city. The guys were not surprised by this, because everything happened as they expected. After finishing the lessons, Teacher Wang decided to take Feng Kai to the bus stop and said that this particular bus would take him to the Star City Academy. After that, she addressed him by name and said that she knows that he is a genius, but he should not relax. He should study as much as possible, all for the sake of his future. He replied, "It's a pity that this is not a galactic academy. The study of cultivation techniques there is simply at an incredible level." Wang said in response, "Star City Academy is in the top 100. Is that not enough for him?" He said, "Teacher Wang, wasn't she the one who graduated from Star City Academy and always told him that this was a terrible institution and he should choose another one?" She grinned and replied that everything had changed. Kai asked if he could choose another academy. Van pushed him away with her hand and said threateningly to get on the terrible bus and not disgrace her. After some time, he arrived at the Star City Academy. Feng Kai, as a student at Star City Academy, was given room 301 on the 3rd floor in the dormitory. It's midday, so he can leave his luggage and go down to the buffet. He saw a lot of dishes on the tables and was shocked that there was absolutely everything here. Is he really in heaven? This is worthy food for worthy people. He grabbed a lot of dishes into plates and said, since he gained the ability to travel to the future, his appetite has grown a lot, and he hopes that no one will be too much against him. He looked at the next table and saw a lonely girl, on whose table there was even more food. He was surprised and asked what was going on. She has a rune crystal in her hand. It's just like barrier monsters. She looked into his eyes, which alarmed him, and he realized that it was a very scary look, just like a barrier monster. She continued to eat. He silently looked at her with dazzle and wondered how such a huge amount of food fit into such a small body. Technique exchange class. He went inside and spoke. His understanding is quite superficial, and he hopes that if he says something wrong, other people will correct him. Some guy put his hands behind his head and said, if he really is such a non-entity, then he should just leave here. Kai was dumbfounded and wondered if all the students and academies of the Star City were so uncultured, except for the Tiger Fist. He had nothing else to show them, so he would just talk about his experience. He began to reprimand. Then he would tell her about his understanding of body cultivation. Body cultivation is a form of physical training to enhance bloodline, and as the level of training increases, the body becomes invulnerable to water and fire, as well as swords and spears. The surrounding formidable ones looked at it without any interest. Half an hour later, he continued to talk, and all the people were delighted. For example, the Tiger Fist technique is divided into 5 positions: divide, pierce, collapse, explode, and cut, and this should be applied all together as when forging metal, wood, water, fire, earth. By doing all this, they will strengthen the meridians. Some guy entered the office and said, as expected from the Star City Academy, the teachers are real professionals. Kai looked at him in bewilderment. He continued to stand near the exit with notebooks in his hand and asked a question. This is a technique exchange class, isn't it? Kai tried to say something, but suddenly the guy said, he is here to listen to the lecture, so teacher, please, he should continue. Kai asked again, is he? No, he is not, but before he could finish speaking, the guys started shouting at him to continue. They called him a teacher, and one of them shouted that he would go crazy if he didn't keep talking. He must continue, the teacher is wonderful. He found himself in a clearing and said, taking a deep breath, how hard it was for him to be a teacher. But at least he now knows that the tiger varnish technique will become popular and change reality. Maybe he should think about becoming a teacher and teaching talented people what he acquires in his dreams. It's late, and it's time for him to go to bed, fight monsters, and improve his techniques. Suddenly, he noticed a sound nearby and wondered who was playing the flute there. He looked out of the bushes and saw the same girl with long blonde hair whom he had seen in the dining room. Now she was sitting on a stone. He began to clap his hands and said that she played the flute very beautifully. Suddenly, she asked again, isn't he afraid of her? He also asked her a question, why should he be afraid of her? She replied, her name is Mu King. He came closer and said, putting his hand to his heart, his name is Feng Kai. She asked again, he probably doesn't know her. Kai was surprised and asked, is she a famous person? She silently looked at him and stood up from the stone, turned away, and walked in the opposite direction. He looked at her questioningly and decided that when he returned home, he could find out in the search engine who Mu King was. He was flipping through internet resources and suddenly something alerted him. He wondered what? She's actually a rune fighter. Rune fighters appeared after the first attempts of people to seize the power of barrier creatures. Each barrier creature has a runic mark on their body. Humans extract the power of the runes from the barrier being and implant it into a person's body, enhancing the individual's power to that of the barrier being. The first group of people who participated in the experiments became stronger, but after a while their behavior changed greatly to an uncontrollable state, creating a greater threat. A small number of people succeed, but the chance of success is extremely low. But even so, no one can guarantee that the already successful implantation will not eventually get out of control, and in the end, the Rune Fighters project was covered up. Kai looked away and said, "Then it's no wonder everyone is afraid of her. But why is she still a rune fighter when this direction of cultivation has long been closed? And why does Star City Academy have modified people with runes?" He was surprised by this and asked, "Is there anything more about this?" The forums are filled with news about Lin Ran, but who is he? There was news on the news that exchange student Lin Ran was incredible. He was amazed after attending his class. User, Little Supreme Lord of Star City Academy. Contents, everyone should have heard about Lin Ran by now. He was accepted out of turn into the Tiger Soul Research Institute. He was unsure whether to go to his class, but felt that his research into cultivation techniques was not worth his time. But after meeting with classmates attending his classes, he realized that there was a difference in strength between them and decided to go to Lin John's classes, and after listening to his lecture and going to the practice room, he was greatly shocked. His theory is not just a theoretical assumption, but practically applicable. This is the rising star of humanity. Kai opened his mouth in shock and thought, "This is incredible." He received an invitation to the Tiger Soul earlier. Commenters have asked where these classes take place. Is there a video? Someone answered, the first lesson was in a cultivation class, and he doesn't know if there will be more classes, but I have to say that his classes were really interesting, and he got a lot out of listening to the lesson. It was not limited to theoretical knowledge, as all other people think. That's it, he's a fan of his. This is really well-deserved early admission for such a talented student at the Tiger Soul Research Institute. Kai looked thoughtful and asked, "Cultivation class. Wasn't he there?" "Who is Lin Ran?" One of the commentators asked the question, "Is he so mysterious? No matter how strong he is, they are still all people, and he does not think that he has 6 arms and 5 heads. If anyone recorded his classes, then send it to him in private messages, please." Another user wrote that as a teacher in the combat department, he has personally experienced the difference in talent, which can be like the difference between humans and pigs. At one time, he was the hardest worker in the class, but he was not rated even in the top 50. The most outrageous was his roommate who copied his homework every day, but as a result, he was rated 200 points higher than him in the session, and it shows how unconditional talent is. Lin Ran may be one of those students. Kai thought about it. The famous Tiger Soul Research Institute is recruiting a talented student. This reminds him of a certain person. He remembered the appearance of his teacher and continued to think if Lin Ran has the same talent as Teacher Wang, then that means that he needs to meet him. That's right, he forgot that he was looking for information about Mu King. He continued to search for data on the internet and said that he could not find any more information. He wants to know more about her. That's right, then he'll go to the shelter, but now it's time to go to bed. When he fell asleep, he found himself in the same dream and killing the same monsters. He killed undead worms. Suddenly, he decided in a dream to enter the name Mu King into a search engine, and the system reported that she was a rebel. General information: at first she was a student at Star City Academy, and after graduation, she joined the combat regiment fighting barrier creatures with the rank of soldier. During a research operation for her squad, she betrayed her squad, killed the leader of the group with her own hands. She then created a rebel movement called the Dawn, restarted the Ruin Fighters program, and fought against humanity for over 30 years. Mu King's hands are soaked in the blood of innocence. During this period, she introduced a rebel movement, which resulted in the destruction of several cities. She was guilty of unforgivable sins, despised by future generations. Note, she is a rune fighter, leader of the Dawn Rebels. Her personality is cruel, cold-blooded, and unprincipled. He opened his mouth in shock and thought, it's incredible, she will betray people. But why would she do this? During the time when she was a student at the Star City Academy, Mu King was expelled from society. After graduation, not a single internal team wanted to accept her. Maybe her hard life at the academy helped her become a future enemy of humanity. After graduation, she joined the A-Class Black Reef Regiment and participated in most of the operations against barrier creatures, earning many combat awards. She fought at the forefront against the barrier creatures, during which she came close to death several times, but never retreated. This battle experience will cause the death of many people. The system window reports Mission Number 321529, Mission Customer Scarlet Research Institute, Mission Executor Black Reef Regiment Class A, details underground laboratories suddenly lost contact with their headquarters and may have been attacked by barrier creatures on April 24, 2031 at 3 p.m. They are awaiting assistance from all nearby combat teams to investigate the incident. The level of danger is unknown. Performance reward, Special Spirit Stone X3000, Special Grade B Bathhouse, 3 sets, Level 3 Spirit Plants, 10 pieces. 50,000 credits, Class C Runic Creature, Dead Cave, 3 in stock. He wondered if Mu King had betrayed humanity during this mission, but that shouldn't be the main problem. Search, Scarlet Research Institute. Suddenly, a bright red inscription appeared in front of him that this information was classified. He opened his mouth in surprise and said, Mu King's betrayal will lead to many deaths, and he can't just watch it. He has 2 options. He can either kill Mu King or change her future. Feng Kai frowns and ponders earnestly, why did Mu King betray humanity? In his timeline, she still hasn't joined any group of people, but there should come a point in the future where she gets tired of everyone and commits a massacre. He really didn't expect this from her. Suddenly, an information window appears and clarifies that there is one more thing that King did not expect. He frowns even more and asks in bewilderment, and what is this? The information window does not respond for several seconds, and then explains what is behind it. At that moment, a monster with a barrier creature appears behind him. Feng Kai gets worried and realizes that it is that monster again. He grins angrily, and he wonders if he can still kill the monster, what title will he be given? The next moment, the monster jumps on him, and Kai realizes that he only has one idea. But at this very moment, an information window appears, announcing that the energy has been used up. He needs to replenish his energy. Access to energy is currently 0%. Feng Kai wonders, what is this? The information window only explains that the energy has been used up. It will be returned to its time axis automatically. Then he wakes up in his bed and once again wonders, is the energy used up? What does it mean? Then he sits up on the bed, clutches his stomach, and exclaims, why is he so hungry? He recently had a big dinner. But then he lies down on the bed and realizes that the school canteen is still closed at night. He better lie down and continue sleeping. Besides, it irritates him to fall asleep hungry. The next morning, the sun is shining brightly and a loud scream is heard from the dorm. Feng Kai wakes up, sits on the bed in fear, and wonders what happened last night. Did he lose the ability to enter the future world last night? If he can't enter that world, then he won't be able to improve his abilities. What's the point of all his talk about saving the world if he's lost that ability? Drops of sweat are dripping from his face, and he desperately thinks that, on top of everything else, in a few years he will die. But the next moment he falls on the bed again and exclaims, it can't be. He is very hungry. After a while he comes to the school cafeteria. There is a huge amount of food on his tray, and he joyfully exclaims, food. He will eat until he dies, when Feng Kai starts eating furiously, biting into the meat. An information window appears and explains that the energy is being restored. The energy that is currently available to him is 0.02%. When he notices this, he is very surprised. Does he restore energy with food? Now it's clear why he starts to want to eat again so quickly. The dream world consumes a lot of energy in the body. He has an appetite just like hers. With these thoughts, he looks at Mu King, in front of whom there is a mountain of food on the table. After this, Kai understands that he first needs to communicate with her, and then decide whether to eliminate her or save her. It seems to him that this is the correct method. After that, he takes a tray with a mountain of food and heads towards King. A few more moments later, he sits next to her while she eats. She takes a bite of the bun and asks why he came. Feng Kai smiles sweetly and explains that he came to keep her company. At this moment, the students who are in the cafeteria look at him in bewilderment and exclaim, he sat down next to Mu King. Did he decide to die quickly? It seems that he is immortal. But Kai does not hear this, but only exclaims, it's not good when food gets cold. Those around him still think that he really wants to die. At this time, Feng Kai grabs the meatloaf from Mu King and says that he will borrow it. After that, he takes a bite of it. But immediately King takes the glass of water from him and drinks it all in one gulp. They frown at each other, and the very next moment they start fighting and snatch food from each other. After some time, only one boiled egg remains on the plate, which Feng Kai grabs first. But Mu King intercepts his hand and shouts, "This belongs to her." Kai tells her that he is still hungry, she should give in to the younger one. But she stubbornly continues to exclaim, "No, it belongs to her." The next moment, Feng Kai once again smiles sweetly and politely asks her to share with him. She sees this and looks at him confusedly, letting go of the egg. But then she shouts in annoyance, "Okay." Kai takes the egg and smilingly shouts that he is very grateful to her. Mu King leaves with a tray, and he thinks that for someone who has always been treated like a monster, a normal relationship is already a great joy. It seems to him that this was already a big shock for her. Little by little, he will get closer to her under the pretext of a regular breakfast. After a while, he also eats in the cafeteria. When Feng Kai eats everything, he sighs heavily and exclaims, "He has eaten too much." With these words, he looks at King. At this moment, she furiously eats bread and meat. Suddenly, he addresses her, Mu King. She hears her name and looks at him in surprise. But when he invites her to be friends, she immediately changes her face and, walking away, says that she is full. Kai tries to shout after her, "Mu King," but then he realizes that he said it in vain. Suddenly, a cook appears from the side and asks irritably if she really needs to throw away his food. He must finish everything. Feng Kai gets scared and then reaches for the bread and says he needs to eat a little more. He needs to restore all his energy. When he takes a bite of the bun, an information window appears next to him, notifying him that the energy is being restored. The energy that is available to him now is 0.43%. He looks at this in surprise and wonders if he can really see the system not only in dreams. A few days later, Feng Kai is sitting at the table in the library. He is diligently trying to read something in a book and thinks that he needs a book on how to make friends with a girl. Suddenly, someone with blonde hair comes up to him and says hello. His name is Lin Ran. He was lucky enough to attend his Kai yesterday. His explanation about cultivation methods is amazing. Feng Kai looks at him carefully and remembers that this is exchange student Lin Ran from the Winter Academy. He received the opportunity to enter the Tiger Soul Research Institute early. He looks like Teacher Wang. This is definitely Lin Ran. He even wanted to find him and make friends when he had time, but he didn't expect John to take the initiative. It's just wonderful. Kai sheepishly tells him that he was going to go to the cafeteria. Will he keep him company? Lin Ran replies with a smile, "Yes, of course." After a while, they walk together along the alley and Jan tells Feng Kai that he remembered yesterday that he talked about the tiger fist technique. Can he ask him one question? Does he always go to the library in the morning? Kai first thinks and then answers briefly, no. Lin Ran then explains that he was actually asking around the academy about him. He is a true fan. He was very lucky to meet Kai in the library. Feng Kai listens to him and realizes with concern that he just wanted to make friends with Lin Ran, but now he feels like he has a dog licking his shoes. When he arrives at the dorm, he immediately falls on the bed and says that he is tired. Kai thinks about how, throughout the day, Ran asked him about the tiger fist technique. He desperately asked Feng Kai to teach him. After a few moments, Kai covers himself with a blanket and sighs and says that he wants to sleep. But 10 minutes later, he sits up on the bed in bewilderment and realizes that he cannot enter the world in a dream. If he can't enter that world, then he can forget about improving his skills and saving the world. And then he will die as destined by fate. Is there no way to enter that world without a full supply of energy? Feng Kai then begins to reflect. Each meal replenishes energy reserves by approximately 0.2% to 0.4%. After this, he realizes with horror that in order to fully fill his energy, he needs from 250 to 500 meals. Even if he eats 5 times a day, it will take him 2 or 3 months to re-enter that world. But in fact, there are many types of energy supplements available in online stores. With these words, he begins to look at various products in the online store. Here we have Energy Bar T33. This bar is high in calories and energy supplements such as compressed aura and specially grown plants. With this, you can quickly replenish physical fatigue and speed up healing. The price of this bar is 45,000 yuan. There is also a 9-flowered one in the online store. These are specially grown plants containing large amounts of natural Kai. This plant helps accelerate the absorption of Kai during cultivation and nourishes the body with the necessary energy. The price of this plant is already 230,000 yuan. In addition, there is a Twilight Wolf rune crystal in the online store. This refers to a low-level rune crystal. Such a crystal is obtained from the body of a Twilight Wolf. It contains the energy and special aura of the beast. The crystal is suitable for creating runic weapons. Daily small consumption of this results in body contraction and increased strength. The price for this runic crystal is even higher and amounts to 880,000 yuan. Finally, the store has a gift card. Anyone can buy any product in this store anonymously and without restrictions. The price of such a card is 99,999,999 yuan. Feng Kai reads this and realizes that the prices in such online stores are simply exorbitant. But if he does not buy anything, then he will not be able to enter that world. So he hovers his computer mouse over the confirm purchase button and exclaims he must buy this. After a while, Kai sits staring at the computer. Tears flow from his eyes, and he says that his rich parents left him this money for the entire duration of his studies. But they kept it only for daily expenses. Now he is poor. He had just over 2 million yuan left. The next morning, a courier comes to the dormitory, and standing in front of the room, Feng Kai shouts that it's a delivery. A package has arrived. A few moments later, Kai looks at the 3 boxes arranged on the table and thinks that the 3 packages have finally arrived for him. Which one should he open first? After a few more moments, he eats the bar and thinks that he should try the T33 energy bar first. When he chews it, he notes that it is completely tasteless. An information window then appears notifying you that the energy is being replenished. The energy that is currently available to him is 584%. Kai looks at this and thinks the amount of energy to enter has not increased by that much. But in any case, this is more than simple. Now he should try the 9-flowered one. He holds a plant in his hands and scratches his head, noting that it is certainly beautiful, but does he really just need to eat it raw? The next moment, he is sitting on a chair and trying to chew a 9-flowered bottle. Feng Kai notes that it tastes like traditional Chinese medicine, but an information window appears and explains that the energy is being replenished again. The energy available to him at the moment is 31.5%. After some time, Kai holds the runic crystal in his hands and thinks that not one of the first 2 supplements properly replenished his energy. Now his last hope is the Twilight Wolf rune crystal, on which he spent 880,000 yuan. He looks at it carefully and wonders, is this even edible? But the next moment he begins to chew it and notes that it is quite crunchy. An information window appears and announces that the energy is fully replenished. The energy available to him at the moment is 148.27%. Feng Kai sees this, smiles, and realizes that it was worth every yuan. Now he must try to sleep. Within a few moments, he finds himself in another world and laughingly exclaims, "It worked." After that, he becomes with a serious expression on his face and realizes that he definitely won't die so easily, even if he can be reborn endlessly. He climbs onto a small rock ledge and thinks that this time he will speedrun to the shelter to find out everything he can. And then he will escape again before the barrier creature comes for him. After some time, he approaches the entrance of the Star City Academy. Kai chuckles and notes that compared to last time, he arrived at the hideout several hours earlier. Now he can easily read all the data. He needs to look at Mu King first. When he gets inside, he begins to read. Mu King is a rebel. She was a student at Star City Academy. After graduation, she joined the combat regiment fighting barrier creatures with the rank of soldier, but during a research operation for her squad, Mu King betrayed her own squad and killed the group leader with her own hands. After that, she recruited a group of fallen, created a rebel movement called the Dawn, restarted the Rune Fighter program, and fought against humanity for over 30 years. Mu King's hands are soaked in the blood of innocence. During this period, she led the rebel movement, which destroyed several cities as a result. She was guilty of unforgivable sins, despised by future generations. Among the notes, it is worth noting that she is a rune fighter, the leader of the rebels called Zarya, and she is also a traitor. Her personality is cruel, cold-blooded, and unprincipled. Feng reads everything carefully and understands that his actions did not affect Mu King in any way. Then he wonders what kind of person she will become in the future. After that, he reads all the available information about Lin Ran. His age is 103 years. In the past, he was regarded as the most talented student at the Tiger Soul Research Institute. He had a vast knowledge of energy and made significant contributions to it. Jan developed the nodal flow cultivation method and since then joined a group called the Infinity Tiger Soul Research Institute. Unfortunately, reality has shown that Lin Ran only has talent for studying energy, but not for developing new cultivation methods. While developing a new cultivation method, his destructive ideas pulled the entire group called Infinity in the wrong direction. His new cultivation method had hidden dangers. Millions of people have damaged their meridians, and this has slowed down the development of all humanity. He stopped developing techniques for many years, and eventually committed suicide out of oppressive conscience and guilt. Among his historical achievements is an elite S-class fighter, but this was annulled. He is also the leader of the Infinity Group of the Tiger Soul Research Institute. This achievement was also annulled. In addition, he is a member of the Tiger Soul Research Institute. This achievement was annulled. Lin Ran is an outstanding graduate of the Winter Academy, but this historical achievement was also annulled. He is the creator of the nodal flow technique, the creator of the 5-element flow technique, the author of a study of the teachings of 3-Zo magic. Among the notes, it is noted that he is a failure of humanity. When Feng Kai read everything, he rubbed his hands slyly and noted that he had only now realized that he wanted to be friends with very special people. The first of these two is closer to demons than to people. It served to destroy a private part of the population, and the second is the loser of humanity. Then he is about to type something and thinks that now he must find something. Kai smiles slyly and then begins to ask many questions. How can he get rich? How can he make money? How can he make money quickly? A few moments later, he enters into the search bar the question, how can he become the richest man in the world? Feng Kai thinks this is a very good question. A few more moments later, he reads that in 2026, a virtual reality mob game called Redemption was developed in a 5v5 clash format, where spells were realistically simulated by castable players. The peculiarity of the game was that all the spells and methods of their cast were accurately projected and did not differ from reality. In the past, universities allowed students to form groups and enter barriers to practice, but many died as a result. After the release of the game called Redemption, even schoolchildren could practice real-life battles against barrier creatures. The developer of a game called Redemption has become the richest man in the world. Feng Kai reads this, slightly sticks his tongue out of his mouth, and mentally chuckles that if exact copies of the game are saved, then he can copy them and publish them. After that, he enters the source code of the game called Redemption into the search bar. The next moment he exclaims joyfully, "Here it is." But when he starts looking at all the source code, he realizes that he simply will not be able to remember it all. After a while, he runs out of the entrance to Star City Academy and thinks that he should get out of there before the barrier creature finds him. His time here is up. He runs out the door and shouts somewhere inside that it was nice to see you. After this, Feng Kai becomes more serious and notes that this was the first time he left the shelter by running with his own legs. But where should he go now? After thinking for a few seconds, he understands to the east, but at this very moment a skeleton with red glowing eyes appears in front of him. Kai wonders what is this. The next moment he hits it with all his strength and the skeleton falls to the ground. Its head flies off to the side and Feng Kai sits down next to him. He scratches his head, sighs with relief and exclaims that he was very scared. He thought it was a barrier creature from the shelter. Within a few moments he looks at his hand and wonders what. Is this a promotion? Now his muscles have increased. Suddenly an information window appears, which clarifies that Feng Kai is a strong undead. His current rank is strong, with 10% added physical strength and increased natural regeneration. In addition, he has the title Firm, which belongs to the second level. The muscle strength of his body increased by 2%. According to his pedigree, he is a person with an initial rank. His bloodline evolution score is 113 out of 1,000. His current rank is strong, but it can improve. His progress to the next rank is 0%. Hardness, which belongs to the second level, can also be improved. In addition, his muscle strength was increased by 2%. Feng Kai laughs joyfully and exclaims he is strong. A couple of hours later, he steps on a puddle and looks back and thinks that it all looks like the end of the world from a movie. There are many ruins of various buildings around it. Kai looks at this and notes that if he really was the last person in the world, could he survive any longer? Suddenly an information window appears, notifying you that danger is approaching. Feng Kai turns his head in different directions and exclaims in bewilderment, "Where? The next moment, the information window clarifies. Is he blind? Kai turns his head to the side and sees a huge white ball with appendages, in the middle of which an eye opens. Feng Kai notes with dismay that this one-eyed monster is too big. With his current level, he is not an opponent to this at all. After that, he tries to leave, but suddenly wonders what? His body. He can't move. At that moment, the monster reaches out with tentacles towards him and grabs him. Kai screams desperately. He is in pain. He clenches his teeth tightly and thinks that his mother did not give birth so that he would die like that. But the very next moment, a barrier creature appears. The one-eyed monster notices this, and the creature jumps towards it. The one-eyed monster carefully monitors the movement of the creature from the barrier when suddenly it approaches and strikes it with its claws. The monster immediately lets go of Feng Kai, and he falls to the ground with a loud cry. When he lands, the air rises into a large cloud of dust. Kai rubs his bruised head and thinks that he seems to have seen that small, black barrier creature. Which of these two is stronger? But while the one-eyed monster and the creature from the barrier are fighting, he still leaves and thinks that he doesn't need it. His life is more valuable than the answer to this question. He walks some distance and notes that he never thought he would survive thanks to that barrier creature. That's not bad luck. The next moment, an information window appears and asks him if maybe it wasn't luck. Maybe he smells of weakness, and that creature followed him through this stench. What does he leave behind? It is very easy to track. Feng Kai asks in confusion, what does this mean? Does he think the barrier creature was chasing him? He thinks a little more, but then grimaces and notes that the information window only creates controversy, that is, a useless argument for the sake of constantly promoting the views of the enemy. But suddenly, from behind a large stone, another monster with blue fur and a purple horn on its head appears. The information window again announces that there is danger. Feng Kai sees this and exclaims in fear, out of the frying pan into the fire. Well, now he will definitely die. The monster opens its mouth, from which a pink bubble flies out. It flies straight towards Kai, and he screams in surprise. When the soap bubble hits, he mentally exclaims, how sad that is. It's even sadder to think about the money spent on replenishing energy. But the very next moment, the bubble flies back, and Feng Kai, closing his eyes, shouts no. When he opens his eyes, he looks around the body in surprise and wonders, is he still alive? An information window appears and explains that this creature is called a horror, and it is capable of plunging any creature into a sleep of illusions. Since he is already in a dream, this does not work on him. And this creature is very weak, so he can go and hit it hard. Kai smiles and looks at the monster who hid behind the stone and exclaims, of course. Then he takes a bone from the floor and moves closer to the monster. Upon seeing him, it immediately begins to release many pink bubbles, but they all fly past Feng Kai without causing any damage to him. When the monster sees this, he opens his eyes in horror. Kai frowns at him and asks, does he think he can hypnotize him? Isn't this stupid? The very next moment, Feng Kai swings and hits the monster first on the left side, then on the right. After these blows, he becomes dizzy and bleeds from his nose and mouth. Kai swings one last time and hits it on the head with a scream for it to finally know its true strength. The next moment, the monster falls to the ground and Kai is very surprised. Seriously? Is it that weak? Suddenly, an information window appears and notifies that among his strong undead, 10% of physical strength and enhanced natural regeneration are added to his current rank of strong. The title horror also appears, which is not upgradable. It is the ability to overcome a mental barrier and read the contents of the target's memory. The result depends on the user's mental strength. In order to use the ability more effectively, the user must increase mental control. Feng Kai reads this and exclaims joyfully, this is incredible. After that, he returns to the Star City Academy and, standing in front of the control panel, notes that he needs talented people who can create games. His chances of becoming the richest person are incredibly low. If he does not receive outside help, he will not be able to create capital alone. After that, he clicks the computer mouse cursor on the biography of Feng Jiayu and the fall of the genius of virtuality. After this, an information window is shown which explains that Feng Jiayu was a rising technological star of their time, showing excellence in research and development even in his youth. He created a virtual reality engine called the Future, which will still influence people 10 years from now. This virtual reality engine was used by the military to test various weapons. The engine is developed from the same predecessor engine as Redemption. Jiayu's death remains a mystery, with no information available on the matter. There were many hypotheses on the internet about the causes of his death. He suffered from severe depression and could have committed suicide as a result. There were also suspicions that he was killed by colleagues. There are many conspiracy theories, but none of them have evidence. After reading this, Feng Kai sits on the floor and thinks, Fang Jiayu died in 2027, which means he is now 16 years old. In 2 months, there will be a turning point in his life. Everyone thinks that this incident made him depressed and became the reason for his murder. For the benefit of humanity and to earn as much money as possible from the redemption. Then he resolutely clenches his fist and realizes that he has understood everything. He will change Fang Jiayu's fate. But again, an information window suddenly appears, inviting him to see who came to them. He should say hello. Kai turns around with excitement and sees the barrier creature's paw. The next morning, Feng Kai wakes up and realizes that what happened next was expected after meeting the barrier creature. An information window appears and announces that its available energy is 48.7%. This asks him to replenish his energy. He notes that his energy is only half full. After a while, he comes to the school cafeteria, sits down at the table, and joyfully exclaims, Mu King. She eats and looks at him in bewilderment. Kai places her hands on the table and notes that it is quite a coincidence that she also came to eat. Lately, he had been thinking about asking her to teach him to play the flute. Does she mind working out with him and setting aside time for this? He definitely won't give up until she says yes. In response to this, King wipes his lips with a napkin and then leaves and says that if he really wants to learn to play the flute, then he should come to her on the shore of the lake in front of the dormitory closer to the night, and then she will give him flute lessons. Feng Kai exclaims with a wide smile, of course he will come. After that, he happily thinks that he finally has a chance to become friends with Mu King. Lin Ren suddenly approaches him and notes that this is not the first time he has seen Kai flirt with Mu King. Does he like her? Feng Kai turns around in fear and tells him to stop approaching him so unexpectedly. After this, he explains that John will not be able to understand him, but he does not like her. He does it all for the sake of humanity. After a while, they leave the school cafeteria and Lin Ren asks if Kai will go to the cultivation exchange class after lunch. In response, Feng Kai thoughtfully repeats the cultivation methods. Suddenly, he understands exactly the cultivation methods that John developed, and this destroyed millions of destinies. He must stop him. He doesn't have to learn cultivation methods. After that, he turns to him with a sweet smile and notes that he is still very young, and there are many more important things besides cultivation methods. Lin Ren looks at him with great surprise and clarifies which ones, for example. Kai puts his hand on his shoulder and suggests, for example, while he is still a hammer, he can find a mate. He must feel the beauty of love. But Jan turns around and leaves, answering, no, women are just a waste of time. He needs to go to class. Feng Kai silently looks after him. But within a few minutes, they are sitting in the cultivation methods exchange class. The teacher explains that these are the simplest basics he just talked about. Jean looks tiredly at the teacher and thinks that this is so difficult that he gradually falls asleep. Kai put his head on the desk and also mentally exclaims, this is all very difficult. He will fall asleep right now. When the starry night comes, Mu King sits on a stone near the lake and plays the flute. Suddenly, she opens her eyes, grabs her right hand and exclaims, not now. Her hand begins to change and King screams that she is in great pain. At this time, Kai comes up behind her and watches what is happening. She screams loudly, and then he immediately runs up to her, puts his hand on her shoulder, and asks what happened to Mu King. But the very next moment, he looks forward in bewilderment and thinks that this is real horror. He ends up in her memories. Little Mu King sits near the bed and exclaims loudly, Daddy, Dad. Feng Kai watches what is happening and realizes that this is King as a child. She continues to cry loudly and repeats, Dad. Her father weakly strokes her head and reassures her. In the future they will be together again, but first he must follow her mother. She must be careful, learn from everything, and be strong. After that, he gives her the flute and says that this is the only thing that Dad can leave for her. Mu King should not be afraid. As long as she has strength, she can get up. King is then left alone, holding a flute. A tall woman with red hair appears in front of her and exclaims that their blood flows in her veins. This is their great achievement. Mu King should go with her and finish the experiments. After this, the woman takes her hand and leads her to the passage, and from where a bright white light oozes. Little King turns around and looks at Feng Kai with big rounded eyes. At this moment, it's like glass is breaking around him, and he screams loudly, "Mu King." The very next moment, he moves back into reality and sees her reaching out to him with a hand with long clawed fingers. But suddenly a large and bright explosion is heard. A large gap forms between it and Kai, from which smoke rises. He tries to shout loudly again, "Mu King." She looks at him with regret and apologizes. She then leaves and Kai coughs up blood. He puts his hand to his chest and thinks with relief, fortunately, he has become stronger in the dream world. Otherwise, he would have already turned into a corpse. Mu King's strength is comparable to barrier creatures. Perhaps she was being used as a guinea pig by the woman in the black dress. Perhaps she made her a rune fighter. The reason for the death of King's parents may be due to inhumane experiments. It seems like he's a step closer to the point. Behind all these experiments, perhaps there is a thread leading to the Scarlet Research Institute. The day after the incident, Mu King and Feng Kai were sitting at the table in the school cafeteria. He realized that after what happened last night, King's attitude towards him had changed for the better. He got along well with her, and Lin Ran is still interested in cultivation methods. Kai watches Jan read one of the books on the topic and realizes that he needs to stop this. What if he asks Lin Ran if he is reading a book about a spell? The spell is much better. Jan smiles sweetly and thanks him for his concern. But afterwards he says that he still will not give up on learning cultivation methods. This is truly his way. Kai then frowns and notes that he thinks Lin Ran is very talented in spells. He shouldn't waste such talent. But he is stubborn and replies, maybe he is also talented in learning cultivation methods, and he just hasn't shown results yet since he still hasn't delved into it. He should at least try. Feng Kai also insists that he should think about his advice. How much time and talent can a person have? Maybe if he studies spell cultivation methods at the same time, he might not achieve anything. A person has only one life. He must focus on one activity. Jan agrees with him and notes that Kai is right. He decided he will study cultivation methods. After these words, Feng Kai abruptly gets up from the table, puts a book in front of him, and exclaims that first he must start reading a book about spells. Lin Ran asks in confusion, what is he doing? Does he want the world to lose the future great researcher of cultivation methods? Kai explains that he thinks he is saving the world. After this, he realizes that he must keep an eye on Jan and prevent him from learning cultivation methods. After some time at the seminar, Lin Ran stands at the lectern and announces that in the first lesson, many of the students present thought that he was giving a lecture. In fact, it was Feng Kai, and he was Ran. Today, Kai discussed the Tiger Fist technique. He wants to talk about the seal spell. Feng Kai is writing something in a notebook at this moment and thinks that what he is talking about is too difficult for him. He needs to think about his own problems first. He wrote down several points on a piece of notebook paper. The first point was that this is not a dream, but time travel. He travels to a future world 1,500 years later. The second point was that after he dies in time travel, he will return to the real one. On the subsequent journey, he will appear at the same spawn location. The third point was that after each time travel, he loses the ability to travel and needs to fulfill the energy. The fourth point was that no matter how long it took to travel through time after he returned to reality, not even a second would pass in his world. The fifth function is that after traveling through time, he knows the future and his altered knowledge also affects the future, which he can again see during time travel. After this, Feng Kai carefully looks at the notebook and notes that this is all he knows. Can he leave a letter for his present self in the future to save this world? He needs to access Star City's database to gain access to classified data. Due to the fact that he does not have a higher level of access, he cannot view cultivation techniques above 5 stars in the database. He also needs to find out about the Scarlet Research Institute. The Scarlet Research Institute may be conducting illegal experiments on the creation of ruined fighters to be the main reason for Mu King's rebellion against humanity. If possible, he would like to tell the government everything and let them figure it out on their own. Lin Ran and King will bring many problems. If he can't prevent the problem, he hopes the government can. Then he needs to register a new postal address. And he also needs to buy the Twilight Wolf rune crystal. That seems to be all. At this moment, he is sitting with his arms crossed and holding a pencil in his mouth. Lin Ran suddenly turns to him and asks if Kai wants to add something. The pen immediately falls out of his mouth, and he explains that he would like to talk about the physical cultivation method. At this moment, he thinks that this is the only thing he memorized before that monster came. After that, Feng Kai gets up from his desk and enthusiastic voices are heard in the class. Hooray! Is incredible technology waiting for them again? After the lesson, the students leave the office and comment that Feng Kai was incredible. But at this time, with tears in his eyes, he realizes that he has nothing more to teach the students. After some time, he goes outside, when suddenly he calls out to him. The man apologizes and notes that Feng Kai has incredible knowledge in researching cultivation methods at such a young age. Wouldn't he like to go to a star university? Kai looks at the man in surprise and wonders who. But the very next moment, the man comes closer to him and clarifies with a smile. Kai is from the Star High School, right? One of his students works there. Her name is Wang Jinsheng. Kai is surprised and explains that she is his class teacher and history teacher. The man immediately exclaims and explains that he is also his teacher. He would like to give him a business card. Feng Kai can call if he has any problems. With these words, he hands him a business card on which it is written that the man is the president of Star University. His name is Bai Fusheng. Kai reads the inscription on the business card and wonders if teacher Wang Jinsheng is the president of Star University. Fusheng wants him to study at his university. After a while, when night falls and the stars light up in the sky, Feng Kai comes to the park. He remembers that he had arranged a meeting with Mu King somewhere here. After that, he looks out from behind the bushes and is very surprised. He sees King and 3 girls in long black skirts. She asks them with irritation, maybe they will leave her alone? But one of the girls, crossing her arms, says that this is the first time she has seen a ruined fighter. What is Mu King's ability? She must show them. But she just tells them to all leave her alone. The next moment, a girl with a short red haircut gives her a strong slap in the face. Feng Kai sees this and gets angry. The girls start kicking King as hard as they can and exclaim, "She's a monster. Why doesn't she fight? She must show them what a ruined fighter can do. She is a true monster." Lin Ran suddenly appears and shouts that they must stop this now. Kai sees him and is very surprised. Jan. The girls also turn around and exclaim in surprise, "It's him." Jan sternly tells them to apologize to her. At this moment, his eyes light up with an unusual glow. The girls immediately bow their heads to Mu King and ask her to forgive them for this. After that, they leave and John immediately goes to her and asks if she's okay. But also at this moment, Feng Kai appears from behind the bushes, runs towards her and shouts Mu King. He notes that even though she is strong, she did not fight back when she was humiliated. She restrained herself. King is quite kind now. When he comes closer, he sees her crying and speaking her flute. Kai wonders again, what's wrong with this? But then he sees her broken flute and exclaims, "It can't be." This is the same flute left behind by Mu King. He picks up the broken thing and mentally notes that it is not just a flute. This is an important memory for the king. Because the flute is broken, she has forever lost the only memory of her father. She must be very upset. After that, he turns to Mu King and suggests going to dinner. After all, after a good meal, your mood always improves. She looks at him, but suddenly her memories are shown in front of her. She looks forward and mentally turns to King and sees how her father puts his hand on her shoulder when she was a child and says that after she eats, she will have the strength to go further. She shouldn't cry. After that, Mu King smiles and agrees, okay, they can go eat. The next moment, Feng Kai hugs Lin Ran and exclaims, they can go. He also mentally hopes that she will understand that not everyone perceives her as a monster. The next day, Bai Fusheng sits at the table, looks at the paper and asks why Kai wants to know more about Mu King. Feng Kai explains because she is his friend. Fusheng asks again in surprise, friend. He would advise him to stay away from her. Kai asks in surprise why. Is it because she is a ruined fighter? Bai Fusheng explains that Mu King is very unstable and could accidentally harm him. She lost control more than a couple of times during her training. Then Kai asks him if he can tell him about her. Fusheng looks away and frowns, saying that he doesn't know much about her. King was transferred from the Scarlet Research Institute to their Star University on their initiative. She is a research subject of the Scarlet Research Institute, and she is also the result of their experiments. At this moment, Feng Kai realizes that this is a ruined fighter development project. After that, he puts his hands on the table and says that he thought that this project was banned. How can a Scarlet Research Institute conduct such research so openly? Fusheng agrees, yes, this project was banned. But the Scarlet Research Institute is special. This is independent of other research centers, controlled only by the ministry. The researchers of this center have the right to conduct prohibited research on a small scale, including the Ruin Fighters Project. Of course, all experiments conducted at the Scarlet Research Institute are carried out by volunteers on a voluntary basis. Kai can't believe it, on a voluntary basis. In Mu King's memories, she wanted to give it up with all her heart. After this, he asks by Fu Sheng if King voluntarily became a fighter. He explains, of course. He must know about the Wanderer. Wanderers are people who left their cities and were captured by barriers. Along the way, many kill the same wanderers for food. Whatever city they come to, that city is filled with violence and crime. Her parents were wanderers. Mu King's entire family signed up for experiments on them at the Scarlet Research Institute, but her parents died due to poor health. But she survived. Her parents wanted her to receive a better education. The Scarlet Research Institute granted this request and sent it to the Star University. After this, Feng Kai wonders if the Scarlet Research Institute had locked up Mu King, then they could be considered true evil. But not only did they send her to university, they also do not interfere in her life. It doesn't look as bad as he expected. Then what will make her betray people? He thought he had gotten to the bottom of the truth, but no hint of the truth was even visible. Can he find out now? He must find out everything in his sleep. Lying on the bed, he bites off the ruined Twilight Wolf crystal, and the information window immediately announces that his energy is being replenished. Available energy is currently 141.76%. He then notes that this way he will definitely find the clues. After some time, he finds himself in the Star City shelter. Feng Kai reads about his future again and sees that he has become a researcher of cultivation methods. He died at the age of 26. His cause of death is that he was involved in a covert operation, but the information is classified. The date of his death is June 23, 2038. His achievement is that he is an outstanding graduate of the Star University. He rethought the Tuzu physical exercise technique, received a level medal, and for the development of humanity, he is also the creator of the Tiger Fist technique and body strengthening technique. Kai's description states that in his early years, he showed incredible talent and was seen as a future star of humanity along with Lin Ran during their time together at Star University. At this time, Feng Kai had mental problems. He was paranoid and worried about something every day, which was a loss to humanity. After this, he was expelled from the Tiger Soul Research Institute and subsequently died in a secret operation. After reading everything, Feng Kai notes that everything looks no better than last time. Then he reads the comments. Wind wrote that he was sorry that Kai, who pursued and tried to stop Lin Ran, died so early. Perhaps he could have prevented a catastrophe that would affect all of humanity. What a pity. Assised also notes that if only he had not died young, he could have prevented Mu King from becoming a demon. It was a pity that King didn't listen to anyone except Feng Kai. Reading this, he is surprised and wonders, are these comments by historians? Then he continues reading. Domain Grinder writes that from a historical point of view, if Feng Kai could go further, he would definitely become a famous historical figure. Unfortunately, the young man died at such a young age, and also had psychological problems before his death. This always often plays a cruel joke on geniuses. Love Beverage seems like Kai has simply run out of talent. He has already shown incredible results early in his life. After that, he could not develop a new cultivation method, which broke him, and he went crazy with an already fragile psyche. Feng Kai reads this and can't believe it. Did he have mental problems? What happened to him? First, he needs to look at the messages that he left in the future for his past. He enters the password and notes that everything is now ready. After this, Feng Kai from the future appears and says that he cannot enter the dream, but his body can still store Kai. Unfortunately, he cannot become stronger by killing barrier creatures. He's not sure whether he should be happy or sad about this. Kai then hits Lin Ran with a chair and shouts that he is again teaching cultivation methods in secret from him. Then he will kill him. After that, he leaves, dragging Ran's t-shirt by the collar, and says that Feng Kai from the past should not panic, he will change. If he doesn't believe it, then he can check the future and find out how it has changed. He boasted too much, so people keep praising him even though he can't even go to the future. He gets so many complaints. Now he and Mu King are good friends. After this, King begins to speak. She notes that she originally wanted to finish the research her parents started and be done with it. Kai frowns at her and answers, so Bai Fu Sheng is right. But this does not mean that everything is in order with the Scarlet Institute. He still thinks that Mu King's betrayal has something to do with the Scarlet Research Institute. This mystical organization seems to have many secrets. He was invited to visit the Scarlet Research Institute as an exchange student. The gate of the first entrance opens, and one of the guards shouts that the car can drive inside. The king went through strict inspection regimes, stage by stage. And in the end, an elite army unit was waiting for him. This security system is too big. Hearing this, the researcher who is leading him just grins. He takes the tablet and notes that it is a spiritual plant that they have plans to plant inside the barrier. They also have experience in creating rune fighters and spiritual rune armor equipment. Feng Kai exclaims that this is wonderful. Then he pretended to go to the toilet and secretly explored the entire space. He subsequently followed a senior executive and found classified documents. Kai got inside the room and saw a folder with documents on which it was written that it was secret. Future Feng Kai holds up a piece of paper and notes that it was a list of names. Mu King, Lin Ran, Wang Jinsheng, and he were on this list. After Lin Jan comes X. What could this mean? Then he found a suspicious laboratory on the third underground floor of the Scarlet Research Institute. King simply couldn't believe his eyes. Barrier creatures were conducting experiments on humans. They all know that the barrier creatures are the enemies of all humanity. Scarlet Research Institute is actually under the control of barrier creatures. Feng Kai did not investigate further. He still can't calm down from the moment he left the Scarlet Research Institute. After returning to the Tiger Soul Research Institute, he began searching for related information on the internet based on the video he made, as well as the list of names. All the people on the list were outstanding people in their field of work. Those who had a cross after their name died in secret incidents. With all this in hand, the king may come to a terrifying conclusion. And the Research Institute gets rid of the geniuses of humanity, thereby slowing down the development of humanity. Lin Ran was later killed. So Feng Kai understands that he must spread the word and destroy the Scarlet Research Institute. People doubted what he said, and the Scarlet Research Institute noticed him. The only video that can prove his words has mysteriously disappeared. Everyone said that Kai had gone crazy, but he thinks it's all because he's next. So he tells Feng Kai from the present to learn from his mistakes. The Research Institute has great influence. Until he is strong enough, he must not reveal this secret. No one will believe him, and everyone will think he is crazy. Now he is ready to die, although he still has many questions. He believes that one day Kai will be able to achieve the truth. May good luck accompany him. May humanity win. The video then cuts out, and an information window explains that this is all that remains. Feng Kai rests his hands on the control panel and realizes that he now knows why he always sees the end of the world in the future. When among them, traitors, the development of humanity is like a rotting tree. No matter how much it grows, it will still collapse in one moment. That means it's all because of the Scarlet Research Institute. After this, Kai clenches his teeth in anger and realizes that he must destroy it. They must disappear. Perhaps he could gather the living geniuses including Lin Ran, Mu King, and Wang Jinsheng. They will be able to create their own organization to fight the Scarlet Research Institute. When they are together, not only will they be able to escape an assassination attempt, but they will also be able to save the world together. What Feng Kai needs now is firstly to become stronger, secondly to protect other geniuses, and thirdly to teach people the knowledge of the future. Thinking about this, Kai throws his hand up and exclaims, "This sounds very cool. His plan is ready." Afterwards, he notes that he was looking for information about Mu King and Lin Ran. King is the leader of a group called Zarya, and Lin Ran is a sinner. The comments about them are quite unflattering. He must change everything. Feng Kai then goes outside and desperately fights the skeletons. When he succeeds, he wanders through a deserted and abandoned city. Suddenly, he hears an incomprehensible noise and turns to the side. Kai sees a barrier creature running towards him from a cloud of dust. He gets very scared and starts screaming in fear. But the next moment he manages to hide behind a stone slab while the barrier creature walks by and tries to find him. Feng Kai trembles with fear and realizes that it won't just go away. He doesn't know how strong the barrier creature is. Well, every time it easily kills him in the blink of an eye. He has to survive, so he can't take any chances. After some time, Kai runs out of his hiding place and runs towards the areas of the city that have remained partially preserved. When he turns around, he wonders if he has really lost his pursuer. After that, he climbs to the top of one of the buildings, which has fallen and rests on a neighboring building. Feng Kai notes that he needs to look around. But suddenly he gets scared and exclaims, "It can't be." He sees the barrier creature running straight towards him and wonders, has it really caught up with him? Feng starts running away again and wonders why this is endlessly following him. He must get rid of the barrier creature or he will lose a lot. Even if he couldn't get rid of it, he would have to look for cultivation techniques. Otherwise it will all be a big waste. But when Kai runs under the bridge, he suddenly stumbles upon a huge, sleeping rhinoceros with a red crystal in its forehead. He stops in horror and cannot understand, is this really another barrier monster? Feng Kai takes a step back, but just at that moment the rhino exhales and opens his red eyes. The very next moment a huge monster is chasing Feng Kai. He screams desperately. Suddenly an explosion is heard behind him and he falls next to the stone debris. It seems to him that everything is over. He's definitely finished. Suddenly Kai notices a small space under the rubble and the information window orders him to hide as quickly as possible. He climbs inside and carefully peeks out, noting how unlucky he is. He met another barrier creature. But the very next moment, a huge rhinoceros runs up to Feng Kai's hideout, breaks it open, and the information window notifies him that he should be more careful. He thinks with fear it can't be. And they found him again. The barrier monster notices him and Kai has to flee. He screams for the system to do something. An information window appears and notifies that the barrier monster will chase him without reason and without stopping. He must find a method to get rid of it as soon as possible. If the monster hits it at least once, it will die immediately. Feng Kai jumps over the debris and asks the system if it has any suggestions. The information window tells him to just run. Then he shouts with rage that it annoys him. But the barrier monster catches up with him from behind again, and the information window notifies that it is approaching. Kai tries to run away and screams for the system to stop bothering him. He runs up to the cliff. An explosion is heard behind him, and he falls to the ground. The information window appears again and warns that there is no path ahead. The barrier monster is already behind him, and Feng Kai, gritting his teeth in fear, understands that this is the end. He closes his eyes when suddenly an information window appears and notifies him that he just needs to wait. Kai opens his eyes and is perplexed because the monster stopped and turned his head to the side. Feng Kai looks in the same direction and notices a black monster. He looks at this and mentally asks that salvation finally come to him. But then he starts laughing and exclaims that this monster saved him. The next moment, an information window appears and explains that the black barrier creature distracted the rhinoceros. It moves straight towards the black creature and stabs it with a golden horn. Kai sees this and exclaims, "It was so fast." The very next moment, the monster pierces the black creature right through and Feng Kai exclaims again, "It can't be, that black barrier monster was killed in an instant." This is real horror. It can be seen by that creature with one hit. It seems his fate is already sealed. But suddenly an information window appears and asks him to wait a little. Then it commands him to look closely. The black creature reappears and its wounds heal. Kai sees this and exclaims, "Hooray. The black monster is back." After that he runs away and laughs. It was a fun time, but he should go already. He moves a long distance away and sighs with relief. After this, Feng Kai continues walking and notes that the more he goes east, the more chances he has of encountering barrier creatures. But fortunately, the black barrier monster saved him. Now he wonders if he can find refuge here. But the next moment, the green tentacle grabs his bone, and he tries to snatch it back and exclaims, "What is this? This is a real abomination. It should get off him immediately." But the green tentacles take the bone from Kai. He flies back and hits something. He feels it and wonders, what is this soft and fluffy wall? Then he turns around and the information window briefly says that this is something strange. Feng Kai sees a huge sleeping monster with huge fangs protruding outwards. He starts to leave and thinks that he should get out of here while he's still alive. He reaches the remains of the city and, hiding in one of the buildings, sighs with relief. Fortunately, the monster was sleeping. It was too dangerous for him to be outside. It's better for him to hide somewhere here for a while. Feng Kai then slides down the wall and comments that he is very tired. His legs are shaking very much. Then he looks around and wonders, what is this place? He hasn't been here before. At this moment, there is someone's paw behind the overturned chair. The next morning, Feng Kai wakes up and an information window notifies him that he should go and look around. Perhaps he will find something he needs. He leaves the room and agrees with the system. That's right. Maybe he can find something valuable. Then he walks along the corridor and adds, maybe he will even find money. Suddenly, he looks sharply to the side and, swinging the reinforcement, sharply exclaims, "Who is there? Is there someone there?" In one of the dark rooms, you can see someone's red eyes that are sharply approaching him. Kai screams loudly, falls on his back, and the next moment, an unknown creature with long ears is already sitting on him. He exclaims in pain and then picks it up and holds it in his hands. Feng Kai wonders, is this a child? Or maybe it's a ruin fighter. Or maybe this is a barrier creature. But immediately an information window appears that explains that this cannot be a person. The environment is polluted inside the barrier, and the temperature changes from day to night are too great. The barriers are like hell. Even strong cultivators could not stay within the barriers for long. Kai reads this and thinks with a frown it means it's something else. Suddenly an unknown creature bites his ear, he groans in pain, and then throws it away and screams for it to go away. The creature first looks at him in surprise, and then jumps and hugs Feng Kai by the neck. He stands up and wonders, what's wrong with this? An information window explains what the system does not know. But this creature is not as terrible as he thinks. It's very sticky, can you call it Velcro? At this moment, the creature climbs onto his neck, and Kai dissatisfiedly props up his cheek with his hand. He then announces that there is nothing useful in this building. Now he needs to go to the shelter. He runs out of the building and Velcro follows him. He screams in horror that this creature is very annoying. She should stay away from him. Feng Kai stops abruptly when he sees a huge monster ahead with large teeth protruding outward. At this moment, Velcro manages to jump onto his back. The huge monster licks its lips and heads towards Kai. In an instant, it crushes him with its paw and prepares to eat him. Feng Kai and Velcro close their eyes and yell loudly. But suddenly she hits the monster with all her strength and it flies to the side. A big explosion occurs and the monster is buried under a pile of concrete slabs. An information window appears and announces that it is a barrier creature. Human children cannot have such powers. Feng Kai looks at this with great shock and notes that it looks like pure horror. But the very next moment she again rushes into his arms and smiles sweetly. The information box notes that Velcro really likes him. Kai doesn't answer, but simply scratches his head with a dissatisfied look. After a while, he walks across the field and holds Velcro in his hands. Feng Kai frowns and looks at her sleeping with displeasure. He muses that Velcro is very strong. He will die instantly if she gets angry and attacks him. He needs to find a way to get rid of it. Suddenly, he smiles evilly and understands exactly. He can play it off on the black monster. But then an information window appears that announces that he is a real scoundrel. Velcro is a very cute baby, but Kai just smiles shyly. After some time, Feng Kai stops and notes that it is, in fact, a child. She slept the whole way. It's very cute and defenseless when it sleeps. He then looks forward at the view before him and notes that he has never been here. He didn't even think that there could be such a beautiful place inside the barrier. Suddenly, Velcro notices something and jumps off Kai's arms. He watches in surprise as she runs away and asks in bewilderment where she is going. The information window orders him to run after her. Feng Kai runs through the bushes and shouts Velcro. She must wait for him, but she jumps quickly and at some point stops in front of a tall tree with a wide trunk. He approaches her and asks Velcro what this place is. Has she been here before? But she looks at the tree with wide open eyes and then turns to him and tears begin to flow from her eyes. Feng Kai leans towards her and, stroking her head, asks, is this her home? Velcro misses his parents. At this moment, she hugs him tightly and cries even harder. He takes her in his arms and tells her not to cry. He promises that from today, he will be by her side. After that, he sets off again with Velcro, and after some time approaches the shelter of the Star Academy. When Feng Kai approaches the entrance, he notes that they have finally arrived. He barely survived this time. He certainly did not expect that he would come to the shelter without dying. But suddenly, an information window appears and says that something is wrong. Something is behind him. He must turn around. Kai is scared at first, and then turns around with a frown and mentally exclaims, is this a black monster? A black creature actually appears in front of him, smiling and stretching its paws with claws towards him. Feng Kai holds the Velcro and notes with annoyance that it found them so quickly. He definitely couldn't avoid it now. Suddenly Velcro gets angry and lunges forward at the barrier creature. Kai shouts at her that this is dangerous, the Velcro must come back. But she jumps straight onto the black creature and hits it with all her might. Feng Kai sees this and exclaims in disbelief he didn't expect her to be so strong. Perhaps Velcro can withstand the black monster. He then enters the hideout and notes that he will leave the black Velcro monster behind. The most important thing now is to remember the new cultivation methods, when he can only go back to the future 2 times with his current energy level. He then moves his computer mouse over a category of winning lottery tickets over the years. Kai smiles slyly and thinks that before he gets a stable income, he will try to get finance by buying lottery tickets. After that, he selects the year and date he needs. Feng Kai clenches his fists with joy and smiles and says that he cannot be too greedy. People will doubt if he wins the lottery more than once, so he will only buy 1 winning lottery ticket. Money is not the most important thing to build an organization that can compete with a Scarlet Research Institute. He must find a way to extract rare resources from the barriers. He needs to look for information about barriers. After a while, everything outside becomes quiet. Kai sits on the floor and notes that the sounds of collisions have stopped. Did Velcro really win? Then an information box appears and notes that it is time for him to return. At this moment, the black barrier creature appears behind Kai again. The next day at Star University, Bai Fu Sheng sits at the table and asks Feng Kai what is his answer. Does he want to work at Star University? Kai smiles and replies he has made a decision. He wants to be a teacher at this university. He wants to teach students cultivation methods. Fu Sheng frowns at him, and then Feng Kai immediately clarifies with excitement, or he can teach classes like a student at the Star Academy. Well, he can also do something else. Bai Fu Sheng is still frowning and says that he needs to think about it. In the evening, a loud scream from the host is heard from the hostel room. They were all waiting for this, and now the moment has come. Kai holds a long lucky lotto ticket in his hand. He stares intently at the computer screen and exclaims hopefully, 5 million. 5 million. The host says that right now he will announce the winning number. A few minutes later, Feng Kai is lying on the bed, with scraps of a lottery ticket scattered next to the bed. He sighs in disappointment and notes that what he does in his dreams can affect reality. Now he believes it. Then he writes down a few words in a notebook: Velcro, Scarlet Research Institute, Barrier Creatures. On another page, he wrote that he needed to create an organization and protect the geniuses of humanity. Feng Kai stands on the roof of the dormitory and rests his foot on the fence, thinking Scarlet Research Institute, Mu King, Lin Ran. There are still too many hidden dangers unknown to him. These dangers await him. What must he do to save the future of humanity? After that, he exhales and resolutely thinks that since he has decided to be the savior of humanity, then he should not stop. He must win. The next morning, he, along with King and Ran, comes to the lake and announces that he will leave the Star Academy tomorrow. Lin Ran immediately asks him with concern, where is he going? Is he going to come back? Maybe he wants to go to another university. He wants to learn all the cultivation methods from him. Kai can't throw them, but Feng Kai immediately puts his hand forward and explains that they must calm down. He came to the Star University only as an exchange student. Now he must return to resolve issues regarding graduation. He'll be back soon. They shouldn't worry. No matter where they are, he will guide them and help them become better people. Shan hears this and says that means he will be calm. Mu King looks at him silently at this time. But suddenly Kai hands her a flute and says that it is for her. She takes it in her hands, and he adds that he is very sorry that the previous flute broke. If she wants to play, she can use this for now. King looks at him in surprise and addresses him as Feng Kai. Well, at this point, he leaves and says that he has no more classes, so he needs to go. He wishes everyone good luck. After a while, Kai announces to the students that the lesson is over for today. They completed 4 chapters of the Heaven and Earth meditation. They can have a discussion about their notes and what they learned in this lesson after class. Tomorrow, he will leave the university for a while. At this moment, one of the students loudly distracts him, Feng Kai. He stands up and says his name is Ding Siyuan. He is from the 4th meditation class. Since the cultivation methods he taught them were created by him, could he teach the students how to create new cultivation methods? Ziyuan seems that it will be very useful for students to try to do something on their own. There's a whole saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Kai is very scared at first and then frowns and answers, since the students are interested, he will teach them how to create cultivation methods after he returns. The students hear this and exclaim joyfully. Feng Kai scratches his head and thinks he is finished. Then he takes a pencil and says that he needs to leave one more note. He then writes that he must create a cultivation method. After this, Kai lifts the notebook up and notes that the next time he enters that world, he will need to study the basic theory of creating cultivation methods and copy them. If he wants to teach, he must be fully prepared. But suddenly he frowns and wonders if his class can attract the most talented students in the world, he will be more comfortable protecting them. Once they are well trained, they will become an unbreakable foundation for his fight against the Scarlet Research Institute in the future. As soon as he did, someone immediately called him. Feng Kai goes to the window and answers the phone. Hello? Is this by Fusheng? And Fusheng's cry is immediately heard from the handset. He shouts that the spoken word cannot be taken back, and so that Kai does not apply to another institution. Since he promised to teach at Star University, he cannot refuse these words. Immediately after that, he hangs up. Kai looks at the phone in bewilderment. In the evening, Mu King and Feng Kai are sitting on the shore of the lake, and she asks him why he gave her a flute, and why is he so kind to her. Kai is surprised by her question and clarifies what. King frowns and looking at him asks again, what is the reason? He's a little worried and explains because he understands what it's like to lose your parents. Mu King hears this and immediately asks, is he also an orphan? He reveals that his parents were barrier warriors. They were reported missing while exploring inside the barrier. Later, their comrades found broken weapons and things that belonged to his parents. When he found out about this, he cried for days. Suddenly, he stops and says to King, what about her? How many days did she cry? But she turns away and, closing her eyes, replies that she has only vague memories of her parents. Feng Kai looks at her and realizes that she remembers them exactly, but she is just pretending too much. He then asks her if she ever thought about what she would do after graduating from university. King stands up and says that after graduation, she wants to join a group of barrier warriors and fight on the front lines against the barrier creatures. One day she will die a heroic death, putting an end to her story. Kai listens to her and then stands up and asks what she thinks about him planning to create a group of barrier warriors. She can be the deputy leader and they will fight together. Mu King turns to him and smiles. Then Feng Kai clarifies what. She doesn't want to be on his team. But she explains that she was actually also thinking about creating a group of barrier warriors, and she also thought that he could be the deputy leader of her group. After her words, they shake hands and Kai, laughing, says that they are on the same wavelength. But at the same time, he thinks that many people will die at the hands of her group called Zarya. He doesn't think it's a good idea. After a while, Mo Fei enters the dorm room, notices Feng Kai, and asks in surprise, has he returned yet? He immediately answers yes. Fei then walks inside the room and says that he hates him. Why does he have to work so hard, and Kai just needs to lie on the bed and decide where he should go in the future, to a star university or some other? Feng Kai holds the phone in his hands and clarifies with a smile, how about he give him his place? Mo Fei sits down at his desk and replies that he doesn't need it. He will try to enter a scientific and technological university. Kai looks at him and thinks Fei has always advocated the unification of science, technology, and Kai. University of Science and Technology is a good choice for him. But unfortunately, the development of science and technology requires a huge amount of data accumulation. His memory is limited. He cannot bring that much information from the future. Mo Fei then adds that Feng Kai can choose not only a university, but also a job. But he has a problem. How to at least enter a scientific and technological university or a research institute. Kai hears this and exclaims in bewilderment, how does he know about the Scarlet Research Institute? Fei explains that while he was away, a teacher from the University of Science and Technology came to their school to give a lecture. He said that the University of Science and Technology is a leading university in the field of mechanics, and the Scarlet Institute of Research in Biology. Kai hears this and wonders, biology? So they are trying to create ruin fighters, and the mystical lower floors where they study people really exist. The next moment, he runs up to Mo Fei, puts his hands on his shoulders and exclaims he should study well and try to enter the Scarlet Research Institute. After 5 days, they graduated. Fei entered the University of Science and Technology, and Wang Jinsheng retired to pursue her personal goals. And now, Feng Kai is going to put into practice his plan to save humanity, called education, changing the future at Star University. There must be a place for registration of applicants. He is walking along the alley when a friend calls out to him, and a man says that this is to the right of the hostel. Kai turns around, looks at the man, and realizes that he is a monk. A bag hangs on the man's shoulder, and he explains that he is also an applicant. Feng Kai looks at him and asks in surprise why the monk is wearing tattered kashaya, that is, the traditional clothing of monks. There are many places in the city to help those in need, where they distribute clothes. But he puts his hands together and bows, explaining that he is a hermit monk. His master said that the difficulties in the world are not endless. While they overcome great difficulties, other people can live an easier life. That's why he's dressed like that. Kai listens to him and notes with a smile, this is how it is. This turns out to be his religious path. Faith gives him infinite strength and makes him different from an ordinary person. Suddenly, the monk adds that his master can no longer control him, so later he will change his clothes. After a while, they approach the university gates, between which there is a banner with a greeting to the applicant. But the senior students are standing at the gate, and with a menacing look they say that if the newcomers want to pass, then they must prove their strength and courage. The Star University does not accept weaklings and cowards. The monk looks at this and notes with excitement that it cannot be. They want to show their leadership position from the very beginning. Suddenly, the students shout to them, "What are those two doing there?" They must approach them quickly. The monk hears this and again notes with concern that this is very cruel. But Feng Kai tries to calm him down and says that it seems to him that all the people here are really kind. The monk does not believe him and asks, "Is it true?" Then he must go there first to prove it. Kai immediately agrees. Then he walks up to the students and greets them. It's them. He wants to wish everyone a good morning. The students notice him and immediately note that it is Feng Kai. They should all welcome him. It can certainly go inside. The monk looks at this peeking out from behind a bush and thinks with relief, although he cannot hear what they are talking about, but it is clear that these senior students are quite kind. That means he can be calm. The next moment, he approaches the students and greets everyone. But they don't leave, and then he asks to forgive him. The students immediately frown and rudely ask him where he is going. Why did he speak to them so confidently? Is he really that rude? Is he heading to university? Then someone yells that they should beat him up. The monk puts his hands together and notes that these high school students were not like this when Kai spoke to them. The next moment, the students begin to beat him, and Feng at that moment sits on the bench and thinks that this monk is too slow. After a while, Bai Fu Sheng's voice is heard from the office. He says that there are 11 students in the 3rd combat class. They all acted as an exception. Kai hears this and clarifies exceptions. This means that they all entered the university without a competition. Are they that good? Fu Sheng explains that he would say that these students are all unique talents. From now on, Kai is appointed as the class leader of the 3rd combat class. He keeps his promise. But Feng Kai hears this and thinks irritably, no matter how he justifies it. They all entered the university by circumventing all the rules, and Bai Fu Sheng is just an old liar.